on behalf of Robina at Ned's Club that this is a kind of collaboration with them. We hope in the future to be able to do these events in person at the Ned Hotel in London, in their beautiful facilities there, and to hopefully get people from outside as well as inside the Ned to network and meet each other, as we've already spoken about the importance of networking. But really great to collaborate with all of you, and we're going to be having these events every 2 weeks all the way in the run up to Christmas.
The power of blockchain is literally to empower women, those who are unbanked. You know, India and China, where you've got almost 50% of the population women, most of them really don't have any autonomy or empowerment in the rural areas. And when I was at this conference, and also subsequently we had loads of workshops hosted by both of them during this conference, I just couldn't not be involved. And we built a community through the TEDx community, and that's how we really started the motion. And the rest is history. I've been involved with many healthcare projects. My first one, I was the CMO of a healthcare project based out of Israel, and we were able to go to Disrupt Berlin and become finalists. And then I decided to do a lot more research, learn a little bit more, get connected to people like Helen, who hosts the most incredible events, and you learn so much, you network so much with all of her events. And I'm subsequently now the steering committee lead for Tech London Advocates Blockchain, where we need more women. So please join us and help us build a really stronger community. Obviously, delighted to have people like Helen, Jane, and of course, Amber, who's just been phenomenal, because I've got to give you a shout out, Amber. So soon, I hope you'll find out exactly why I think she's such a trailblazer. She's doing some incredible stuff in fintech. And I think Alliance Block has just done a fantastic private sale, but I won't go too much into that.
Thank you, Siddhi. I mean, it's incredible. I'm sure on this call we'll find other people, including Amber, who are already building, you know, the companies of tomorrow and really trying to take blockchain and use it to, you know, reduce inefficiencies for one thing, but also to create new types of products and services that don't exist, and particularly in financial services. You know, this is one area we see as ripe for disruption. I'm working on a hackathon project at the moment, which is about reinventing how people on very low incomes get access to finance. And, you know, being able to use these different tools and pull them together can have a huge impact on people's lives, you know, whether it's people investing at the very high level, but also people, you know, some of the poorest people who just can't get access to a mobile phone or get their boiler repaired because they can't get access to credit. So we sort of start to see how blockchain has moved from being initially about Bitcoin, which is another huge revolution, but not just about Bitcoin, but also about a technology that can underpin a lot of different industries. So it's great to have you here, and great to have someone who's such a big champion for women in the space as well. I'm going to turn it now to Monica, if you can give us an intro, Monica. I know Monica is an OTC broker and is currently client services manager at Ames Markets, and I think has done quite a lot of networking with other women in blockchain as well through different groups that we're involved in, the Bigger Pie, which is another women in blockchain community, and some networking events that we've had. But Monica, welcome. Tell us a bit about what you're working on and why blockchain is so interesting for you.
Well, I'd like to also talk about later on, probably, about how I got into blockchain, which is an interesting journey as well. But currently, I've been 2 years in the industry. I started off as a OTC broker at a crypto asset brokerage, not coming from a financial background. Just jumped in head first, and yeah.
How did that happen? I mean, that's sort of amazing, because people would assume, well, how could you possibly even get that job if you're not from a finance background? So how did that happen?
It was quite, coincidence really, because I originally, I come from a recruitment administration background, and I was applying for anything that was office management at the time. So I applied for an office manager role. I turned up at the interview, and they said the job's taken, and they immediately pitched the cryptocurrency broker role to me. And at first, I declined the offer, but they told me to go away and think about it and do some research, because I had a lot of skills that can come across into a startup at the time. So the more I researched, I was just really interested in how disruptive blockchain can be, and the impact it can cause in the traditional financial markets, distributing wealth, and also just outside the governmental control. It's like passing on that control onto the end user, being a part of an ecosystem. And so that was what interested me. And at the time I thought I had nothing to lose, because I thought by going into a startup and going into a new industry, I would learn new skills and would benefit more from going into blockchain. Yeah.
I think that's such a brilliant story, and it's a great reminder that it's really important to go for interviews, even if you're not 100% sure, because the people you meet and the opportunities you get through attending these types of opportunities are sometimes not what you expect. It's the chemistry, isn't it, between people, and sort of, you know, being exposed to a new idea. I actually years ago did an interview where I just thought, well, actually, I don't really want this job, you know. And then in the end, they rang me up and they said, well, we're not offering you that job, but we want to offer you a different job in another organization that's in the same building, that's sort of related but completely separate. And I was so happy, because I really didn't want the job I'd interviewed for, but I was really interested in the job that they offered me instead. So, you know, sometimes there's serendipity in life as well as, you know, pure planning. So it's great to hear that story. And we will come back to how you sort of broke in, and what you think other people should do if they want to break in as well, because a lot of times it is accidental. I actually got into this industry by accident as well, so we'll come back to that. But I just want to move on to introducing Tanya Matveeva. Thanks for being with us, Tanya. Tanya is a geologist, and she works understanding how blockchain can be applied to the mining industry. And just to clarify, people may hear the word mining and associate it with Bitcoin, because mining is one of the words used to describe the process by which new Bitcoin are created. But we're talking about traditional mining of, you know, precious metals, minerals, and so on. So Tanya, please tell us a bit more about that, and how you're bringing technology into that industry, which may be something that people don't necessarily associate with blockchain.
Thanks a lot, Helen, and thanks for inviting me. I'm very glad to be with you tonight. That was actually one of the things I wrote first, is like, get mining back into, you know, mining word back to us, to our industry. It should not be associated with some currency. It's mining rocks, and not just precious metals, but all the stuff that we need. So I'm a geologist, been working in mineral exploration mostly all my life. And when we work in mineral exploration, we deal with a lot of data. And so one Christmas break, I was staying with a friend, and they had this book on big data, a very good book. And I started reading that book, and my eyes were just, you know, popping out, and my brain was ablaze with ideas, you know, what kind of information you can extract from big masses of data quite unexpectedly. And so I was all kind of fired up with this big data ideas, and I was thinking, oh, in mining we collect so much data, you know, what do we do with that? And then I heard about blockchain. Whether it was in the same book or a little bit later, I did hear both TED Talks that Siddhi mentioned, and yeah, absolutely brilliant. And I realized, oh, that blockchain is the database to rule them all, you know, the databases, because I worked with databases. And I thought, okay, so how do we, you know, use it in our industry? Because of course I want to improve our industry. I want to reduce the waste. A lot of the work that is done in mining is wasteful. You know, you do something, you research, and it's unnecessary. Nothing happens with this project. Or the commodity prices are so variable. You know, they go up, they go down. But depending on that, projects are born and killed, and then have to be reborn again. So it's just very, you know, random. And as somebody who works in the industry, it's a tough industry to work in. You know, even in exploration, you go to places that are far away, you do dangerous work, you put yourself on the line, you risk your life for something that may be completely wasted, you know. And so I don't think it's right. And I think we can do much better by using good information management, the data management. So I started researching blockchain. I started following what's happening, and quite a lot. So I've been doing it for 2 years now, and so I know what is already happening in blockchain and mining. And eventually I left my job, my paid job, in order to divert my whole energy to promote blockchain technology in mining. So, and this is where I met Jane during Women in Mining event in London, for which I'm so grateful. And then Jane invited me to her conference, and I went to that, and there was a lot there, but not so much from the industry. It was mainly financial stuff. And like, well, let's talk about, you know, other things, other applications. So yeah, and now I'm organizing a conference for blockchain and mining, and it's been a great experience. Scary, so I don't think I'm a very strong woman. You know, so it's very good to see other women who were brave enough to go after it and, you know, succeed. So that definitely gives me some sort of, you know, support, because I feel like I'm, you know, a lonely warrior. Here I am on my own, you know, trying to connect people, trying to explain to these mining companies, oh, why is that? Oh, well, this, so it's, but it's fascinating. And I think I'm right.
Well, I think you are too. And I mean, that's exactly why you are strong, because actually often it is people pioneering new ideas in some quite traditional and quite male-dominated industries. I mean, there's probably few industries that are more traditional and male-dominated than mining, I can imagine. Not that I work in mining, but I...
No, that's correct. They're trying to, you know, fight that. They're trying to change that, but it hasn't happened yet. Still very much old boys club, yeah. Especially at the management level, yeah.
And I think the same is true in financial services. The same is certainly true a lot of the time in the higher echelons of healthcare, which is an area I'm interested in for the same reason as you, to do with improving data management. That, you know, sometimes there are a lot of kind of, so use a very sort of kind of economic word, information asymmetries in the healthcare system, and actually that leads to human pain and suffering, because, you know, we just don't do things very efficiently, and that means more people suffer with illnesses, more people die, being quite frank. So yeah, thank you for pioneering that, and I hope to see what happens with the event, and if I can help you in any way. I do know some people who are in that sort of subject area and interested in that topic, so we'll connect on that afterwards. That would be great.
Thank you, yeah.
So do please put any questions you have in the chat. I've got most people on mute for the moment, but feel free to put yourself into the chat if you want to ask questions, and towards the end we'll have some time for open Q&A as well, and I'll take everyone off mute. But just to come back to our speakers, I wanted to ask you what you think that the COVID-19 crisis has done to the blockchain industry, because, you know, it's had various knock-on effects, perhaps, you know, very difficult times for startups who are struggling to raise money now. Some positive effects in terms of cryptocurrency, a lot of activity going on in the cryptocurrency markets and in decentralized finance, because people are looking for, you know, kind of safe haven assets or diversification of their portfolios, because, you know, we've got very low or negative interest rates and a US presidential election coming up, so lots of kind of ramifications on finance. And to me, you know, at the beginning, I just thought, you know, this is blockchain's moment to shine, because, you know, everything about blockchain fits with what we're seeing in this crisis. We need to work remotely. We need to be able to be decentralized so that we can do things from our homes, from anywhere in the world. We need to be able to transact without a lot of admin and bureaucracy. You know, we need more remote healthcare. You know, a lot of things that I care about and sort of try and embody in my work and have studied seem to be very, very much chiming with the crisis. But actually, when it comes to trying to put that into practice, sometimes it's not necessarily so easy, because when you are in crisis, people just sort of go for what they know, what's familiar, and they don't always want to innovate, even if they should. You know, there might be a slight gap between, okay, we've got this technology, but we need to make some tweaks to make it work for this. So you see that in, you know, contact tracing, you see it in other areas. So be interested to hear your thoughts on how this is sort of affecting the industry. I mean, maybe coming to you first, Monica, on the kind of finance side, because I guess the initial panic has been, you know, our economies are crumbling, people are worried about their finances. You know, do you think this has had a kind of a big impact on the markets?
Yes, we've all seen the traditional markets have a shake up during the pandemic, and when I look at the financial market, I pretty much see it from a single view on how I've been coping with it and how I've been working through it and what affects my immediate circle, and that is the cryptocurrency market. Because working for a crypto asset brokerage, I am daily dealing with the digital market, digital asset market, and I see it being busier than ever before. I see that from the beginning of 2020 that we've seen a 90% growth in the global capitalization of the cryptocurrency market. So it is growing bigger than before because people are looking for an alternative finance outside of the traditional markets. I think people spending time at home has given them time to research more, maybe dibble dabble in the cryptocurrency market a little bit more, and also have more time to research and get more involved and learn more. And we've also seen an uptrend in decentralized finance, which is a trending upmarket trend right now. So people are looking beyond the traditional market and diversification, like you mentioned. And business is booming in crypto. And I think it's fantastic because one of my passions is decentralized finance. And there's a lot of use cases.
Speak a little bit about the decentralized finance movement, because maybe there are people on the call who are not so familiar with that. So obviously when we talk about Bitcoin, it's a decentralized currency, but what does the sort of DeFi word mean as opposed to centralized finance, and how is that sort of playing out? Because there's a lot of things happening right now that have sort of accelerated, I think, in the last 6 months.
So decentralized finance is the new, well, one of the newest technologies that is going to digitize what the traditional market, financial market is now, in terms of lending and borrowing, stocks, shares, derivative markets. So all the traditional markets that you can think of now, the digitization of that. And being decentralized is, we have blockchains like Ethereum, for example, which is decentralized, and you can build applications on this blockchain, decentralized applications that you can pretty much build smart contracts, just build build whatever you want, and copy whatever the financial market is right now. But so being decentralized is just, outside government control, which people sometimes deem to be inflation free, or it would appeal more to countries with high inflation rates, for example, which have a high use case for it right now. And in modern westernized markets, solid, stable markets like ours, obviously volatility is one of the weak points of having a cryptocurrency. But by using stable coins, which is a cryptocurrency that is pegged to the US dollar, for example, you may find some sort of stability and more value there. And then you can just, mix around and experiment more, with cryptocurrencies.
So
it's like a gateway.
I think that's a great sort of introduction, and then really fascinating, because it's not just the fact that something is decentralized, that's one aspect, but it's also then the automation, that if you have a smart contract, which is essentially a piece of software that executes automatically under certain conditions, then you can kind of talk to your money, you can program money to do things for you. So you might be going out searching for the highest yield and trying to kind of increase your returns in a world where obviously you're not getting very good return on traditional investments maybe, but in the sort of DeFi world, you could perhaps get much higher returns, more akin to what people would have been having before. A lot of this, the original financial crisis and now the current COVID crisis have made that big impact on people's investments. So really, really fascinating. And again, as you say, it's evolving all the time. So you've got a platform that's decentralized. You can build applications on top of that. You can automate those. So maybe even it's a company that doesn't have any real people. It's all run by automation and computing. So you have a decentralized autonomous organization that can do things. So our whole idea of a company is really changing, and maybe a company isn't a group of people anymore necessarily always. It's actually just a group of computers governed by certain rules. So it's a very new way of thinking for many people, but it's starting to be something that obviously traditional investors are getting interested in, and the big players, JP Morgan and others, are getting much more interested now than they were a few years ago, where they just said, Bitcoin is nonsense and we're not interested in that. So it's definitely evolving in that sense. Coming to you, Siddhi, how do you see the kind of social impact aspect of this playing out? Because I know that a lot of people are working on projects to help with things like those who can't afford to pay their rent, hackathons for sort of bouncing back economically, mortgage prisoners, lots of different things. This hackathon I'm working on, which is to do with access to credit and so on. How do you think the tech world is sort of attacking this from a kind of social impact point of view? And a health point of view, because that's obviously your other big passion.
So one of the things that I think that is quite remarkable is that during this pandemic, we've just seen the adoption of technology that we would have thought would take another 5 years rapidly adopted. We've seen people, telemedicine, for example, has just shot up. And so people are now looking at blockchain seriously. Other than crypto, we've suddenly had conversations, as you've already mentioned, the track and trace. Singapore has been using that. We also know that China used blockchain technology to basically use it to send money for sending aid, just because of the transparency of it, and getting money and giving aid quickly where it could be where it could go. So I think during this pandemic, we could have been risk averse, but I think what's really great is during this period, we've seen the greatest minds, the smartest people come together. As you've already said, we're doing fantastic hackathons and starting to solve real problems. So, using blockchain technology for aid, making sure we know where the money is going. And also for people who can't afford to pay their rent, you can see already on all the exchanges, people are using crypto to donate to charity. And I think that's come out. It's more now and more relevant now, and people are willing to give a little bit more. I'm a great optimist. I actually think there are more people who have good intentions than there are that aren't. And I also believe that during this crisis, we've seen the world coming together in I don't think in any way we've seen before. Blockchain has opened up opportunities. It's given people a vehicle to contribute in a way and give them a way, an answer on how we can actually go out and do this. Because normally you will say, I really want to give money here, but you know what? I'm not sure if it's going to get to the right source. Whereas now we've got this vehicle, we've got this technology that enables that to happen. It's for those who don't have any identity, and registering births, making sure people who are refugee camps have got some identity. But the technology is obviously something that I'm not technical, but that's bottom line.
Fantastic. Before we come to Tanya, because I want to ask Tanya about how blockchain has been impacted in terms of the mining world, but I see that Jane has joined us, so I just wanted to give Jane a big shout out and welcome. Jane's my co-host, and we've kind of been working on this series together. She's been a bit late because she's been speaking at another conference, so welcome, Jane.
Thank you. It's great to join you. I've just come from Silicon Valley, so now I'm in London. It's fabulous.
All from the comfort of your Brisbane home. Marvelous. Well, we'll come back at the end, Jane, because I want to ask everyone about their tips for women wanting to break into blockchain, and I'm sure you've got some good things to say about that. But I'm just going to come back to Tanya. So we were just talking about how has the COVID crisis kind of impacted on different aspects of the blockchain industry. So Tanya, how about you? How do you think it's made an impact in your world?
Yeah, I think of course, COVID for mining industry was not a great thing, right? It makes things very difficult. A lot of mines closed at first, but they actually started working pretty quickly again. The price of gold shot up, and that's a lot, you know, of impact for all the gold mining companies. So that's a good thing for them. In terms of how blockchain in mining industry is impacted specifically by COVID, I think it is a positive impact because, for example, now with the price of gold so high and people having time on their hands working from home, I, for example, learned that now they even use blockchain to trace gold bars, something that didn't happen before. So blockchain in mining has been used mostly for tracking. Where is it coming from? Supply chain, right?
Yeah.
So that now is going even faster. So that's developing. In other areas, it's also developing, like for trading, metals trading, but I don't know if it is impacted by COVID. I think just in general, the mindset that we are now all remote working, everything is digital. I think in general, it actually had a positive impact because blockchain is a digital technology. Well, here's another, you know, another next step. So I think it actually encouraged people to accept something that they probably didn't think. And honestly, like for my conference, people have time to attend it. People have time to learn. People are asking questions. So I think overall, not for specifically for blockchain, it was not a bad impact.
That's really good to hear. Well, I want to come on to, you know, tips and strategies for how people can break into the industry, particularly women, but not just women. I think a few people mentioned that they sort of ended up on blockchain by accident in some ways. And for me, that was the case around 6 years ago. My previous career had been working in public policy, trying to influence ideas and reform of different industries, including healthcare, and how to kind of balance between innovation, but also protection of intellectual property. I'd also worked as a journalist, so I was interested in how media was declining, and I've been doing a lot of different things. And then I had a sort of short sabbatical. I actually went to where Jane is now. I was in Brisbane for a while and in Sydney after that. And when I got back, a friend of mine said to me, "Oh, you know, I've got asked to work on this big conference about Bitcoin. Do you know anything about Bitcoin?" And I kind of said, "Well, no, not really." You know, I've read a few articles about Bitcoin, I think, here and there, but quite interested in it, but very skeptical of it. And we ended up working together for very intensive 5 months trying to put together a big event on Bitcoin that took place in Amsterdam in 2014. And the goal was to bring around 1,000 people, believe it or not, in 2014 to Amsterdam to talk about Bitcoin, which was pretty tough order in those days because it was a very niche thing and mostly technologists were involved, developers and a few early stage investors, but you know, really not that many people in the kind of mainstream world, not that many politicians knew about it, not that many lawyers or bankers knew about it, and our goal was to try and make it a bit more mainstream. So it was a very interesting experience, and one of the first use cases I sort of heard about, which I thought was fascinating, was a US newspaper that was trying to bring in Bitcoin kind of micropayments for content. And I thought, God, this is great because, you know, information is king, and people are kind of losing the ability to fund the media. So as someone who worked as a journalist, I used to work as an editorial writer at the Times in London and for various other freelance kind of writing gigs. You know, it's harder and harder for the newspapers to pay for good content, for one thing. So it was affecting me personally, but also affecting the wider world. And so that kind of hooked me in. And then I heard about remittances and I thought, well, you know, some of the poorest people in the world are being charged, you know, maybe 30-40% to send money back to people back at home who, you know, are really, really struggling, and people are creaming off this huge commission. So if we can use this technology to allow people to build up assets and get out of poverty, then that's another huge thing. And so if there's these two huge things about blockchain, then there must be others, you know. And then suddenly I found out, well, actually there are people working on blockchain in healthcare, which was my big passion when I worked in policy. And it was kind of touching on every area, from, you know, pharmaceutical research through to, you know, patient data, through to all kinds of other things. So, you know, then it exploded. And actually I did what you did, Tanya. I said, you know, I'm going to devote my kind of full-time career to kind of evangelizing this, not in a kind of religious way, but in understanding it, in finding people from these industries to teach them about this and understand how it could be used in different ways, and trying to sort of expand the knowledge about this topic, because it can't just be, you know, if it's only technologists involved in this, it's never going to go mainstream, it's never going to expand, and we have to meet people at their level. So if I'm, you know, a senior pharmaceutical executive, I'm not going to go to a Bitcoin conference. So that was how Unblocked came about, was the idea that, you know, we would sort of unblock these ideas and these possibilities for different industries. So for me, it was very serendipitous getting involved, and it really was one event, and I could have just ended it there and said, okay, I'm never going to think about Bitcoin again, but it sort of got its hooks into me. And then, you know, I have found lots of different networks and ways to get involved and to get other people involved. So my top tip, I guess, is try and get involved in some networks, because it's very encouraging, as you said, not to be a lonely pioneer sort of waving the flag all on your own, but to kind of meet others who share your view and to learn from them, but also get connected into their networks. And as Siddhi said, you know, that way you get to meet a lot of people. So love to hear your tips and strategies for how you have dealt with this and what you think other people should be doing.
Well, it's interesting because the mining is such male-dominated industry. They have a group called Women in Mining, and I found that a very useful group. You know, I belong to it in Canada and then here. Yeah, where it's just, you know, we have little events where we come together and talk about, you know, our work and what our issues specifically as women in mining. So when I found Women in Blockchain, I'm like, yay, I know. That feels like, you know, the place, you know, to be and to make connections. And indeed, meeting Jane, hello Jane, was, and I've been to two women, no, I've been to one Women in Mining event that actually happened, and then the second one that didn't happen. But I still met a very nice lady there. So yeah, I think, connecting with others. And once I started connecting with others, even outside of mining industry, I felt more confidence to talk to people in mining industry about what I'm doing. Yeah, exactly. You know, they are like, oh, what's the blockchain, Bitcoin? And so it's a bit of a, you know, struggle, and I needed that confidence to say, no, keep listening to me, keep listening. It's not completely, no, I'm right. I know what I'm saying will make sense. You wait.
Fantastic. Yeah, I think telling the story and refining it for different audiences as well as the other thing, sort of finding ways to connect.
Yeah, like you said, to bring it to their level. And this is where I feel I'm still working on it, because although I know mining industry and I somewhat know blockchain, you know, it's a general idea, but it's to tell them why and how it will work. And I still need to work on it. I haven't done my blockchain and mining TED Talk yet.
Okay, there's still time. How about you, Monica? I mean, you talked about joining groups as well and meeting other people, but any other tips for breaking into blockchain?
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. Is to definitely find your network and your community. So initially, when I just started, I didn't know, I was researching so much and learning and reading so much, but I didn't know how to articulate what it was that I was learning. I didn't know how to speak about it publicly or in events and conferences. So going out to conferences, meeting people that have similar interests and that are working in the industry, asking loads of questions, and people are so opening and welcoming, and they'll tell you about their projects, what they're working on, and building relationships, definitely, because I met two of my mentors at Women in Blockchain events, Women in Blockchain Talk events, and by opening up about, you know, not being able to learn at a rate that I wanted to, that's when the conversation went down the lines of, oh, you know, have you heard of this mentorship program? Have you thought about signing up? And then they paired me up with this fantastic mentor for about a 6-week program. And then I met my second mentor at a Women in Blockchain Talks event as well. And then I had the confidence to go up and ask them to, you know, be my mentor, and they were help guiding me through, the whole process of building my confidence to be able to be a better communicator as well. So that really, really helped, because when I was working in the startup by myself for 1 year, just on my own, you didn't really have anyone to talk to. So by going out, being out and about and socializing and building relationships, that really helped my confidence and my education along the way.
I think you raised two really excellent points there about networks and about events. It's not just, you know, going to learn. I mean, obviously going to events to learn is great, and hopefully people have learned a lot from this discussion tonight, but it's the people you meet, and mentorship is another huge thing. If you want to make a career change or you want to just get confidence, I've done some mentoring myself. I've met two fantastic mentees who I've learned from as a mentor, both in the blockchain industry, one who specialized in the blockchain in the construction industry, and another one who's working on a new platform which has kind of an ambassador program, and she was working out how to build that and build a bigger community for what they do. And they're both very innovative, very energetic young women, and so I learned a huge amount from them, as well as, you know, hopefully giving them some good advice as a mentor. So I think mentorship is massive, especially if you want to switch, because part of switching is not knowing exactly what you should do, but it's also feeling confident to make the change. And the other one is articulating the message, as you say, because you may sort of have some nascent ideas, and certainly this happened for me when I got into Bitcoin. I was like, well, I've got all these ideas bubbling up, but then I hear someone who would actually explain it to me better than I could say it myself, and then I would take that message and sort of kind of, you know, reuse it in my own context. So kind of hearing from people who are maybe more technically expert but are good communicators. You know, someone said to me, I think the early stages of when I was doing blockchain events, you find the relatable geeks. You know? And I was like, yeah, that's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for people who are geeks but can explain their geekery to us mere mortals who are not programmers, you know. And so, yeah, I think the relatable geeks have a great service to kind of bring to the world.
Mm-hmm.
We need to find more relatable geeks. That should be a podcast, I think, relatable geeks. I like it. How about you, Siddhi? What's your top tips for breaking into blockchain worlds?
I think one of the strongest and the most important part for anyone, whether you're a woman or a man, it literally is build your tribe. And this is really important. You know, what I haven't said before is I've changed my career path, I don't know, over the last 30 years. I must have changed it more than I've, you know, changed anything in my life. I've had 4 children, 4 career breaks, have had to reinvent myself, and I'm still learning. And as you said, Helen, already, I learned from my mentees, to be honest. I learned to stay young. I learn also knowledge. I'm not technical. I never have been. I've been a very good marketeer, but with blockchain, the technical side, I've always pushed aside. I want to know what's the story, and I want to learn what problems I want to solve. However, as you get into this field, you do need to know a little bit more technical jargon, etc. And that's why I rely on people like you and Jane and everybody else on this panel to learn from you, because I'm really good at what I do. However, I know that whenever you build a team, you need to build a team of people who are smarter than you. And my tribe, I surround myself by people who are smarter than me. I look for women who are smarter than me. I'm proud to say that actually most people I have around me are smarter than me, which keeps me A, on my toes, B, I'm learning from you all the time, but I know that I offer something else as well in return. And I think that is almost like a friendship, relationship, whatever you call it. It's a two-way relationship where you're giving and you're taking, but mainly I want to take from people, I want to take their knowledge, but in return, I'll give much more back. And I think that's what women are doing now. We as women are stronger, not because we're bright, it's because we have a very strong network of women who want to give to each other. Something that, you know, I know growing up, I didn't have that. I had lots of men around me. I never had female role models. I never even had women around me in wherever I worked. Now, this is the most exciting time to be a woman, if I'm being honest, because there are more of us who are smart, who are go-getters, are fierce. I was actually trying to make a list of the women that I really look up to. Nice to be in that position, and it's not just blockchain. You know, I think Monica's got a great story how she got it here. You can transfer your skills in whatever you want to be, if you have enough confidence in yourself about what your core magic factor is, and then what you can offer to other people.
That's absolutely right. I mean, it's really interesting. If someone had said to me, you know, thinking about careers advice back from school and so on, you know, you're going to end up being this entrepreneur who's working in technology, I would have laid down on the floor and rolled about laughing, you know, until I was red in the face, because I'm not a technical person either. I never would have thought I'd, you know, found several companies like you. I've got children and I've changed career many times. And I think it's about not necessarily thinking, you know, what is this industry? It's thinking, what can I bring to things? You know, I've got different skills, communication skills, you know, business development skills, other things that I can bring. And actually the fact that I'm not technical can be a benefit, because I don't speak in the geek language, so I can connect with people who are not, you know, not that many people are, you know, brilliant technologists. That's why these people are so in demand, and they can command very high salaries for building these things. But for the rest of the world, it's about understanding the strategic impact and the business impact or the personal impact of the technology.
One more thing I wanted to say though, one thing that women are really good at, and we are required, and we've seen this now through this pandemic, is we're really good at building allies. And we're also really good at supporting each other once we understand our own confidence, because confident women really do help other women rise faster.
Yeah, and the role modeling is incredibly important as well. I've been reading this Hillary Clinton and Chelsea Clinton book called Gutsy Women this year, and
yeah,
it's taken me a while because it's a very big book, so I'm still plowing through it, and there are so many amazing inspirational women in there. You know, one thing she says in there is that, you know, there weren't role models when she was growing up. She didn't see women that worked outside the home. It wasn't incorporated into the curriculum in school, you know, lots of things like that. And that thankfully has changed and is still changing. But, you know, whatever age you are, you can make a career change, you know, and it doesn't have to be something that is planned. You know, it can just be something that happens because you get captivated by an idea. So it's worth bearing in mind. It's not like I decided when I was, you know, 15 years old, I had this path of career in mind. I never decided that. It's all been kind of through networking and serendipity and being drawn towards ideas that I was interested in. So I think that can be true for a lot of people, and we don't all know what path we're going to take, which is exciting as well. Jane, I want to bring you in because I know you've got tips for people about how to break into blockchain, and I know you're one of these strong women who's very supportive and helps other women, and who's worked in a lot of different industries as well. So if you're still with us, do tell us some tips for breaking into blockchain.
Look, I'm totally with you, and I've listened to the comments that have been made, and I don't want to repeat them, but you know, I think that there are a few things to say. And the first one I want to say is, for those of you who've got children, we need to be bringing our girls up so working in digital and technology is normal and is something that they know about and is something that they're literate in. And we need to bring them the role models so that they can see the opportunities of a digital future. I think the second thing I'd like to say is that the world of work as we know it has changed and will never go back. And so I was talking to some interns that I've got yesterday and saying, you aren't going into a career where you're going to have a job for years and be in that job and be a thing, an accountant or a lawyer. You're going to have to hone your skills and have skill sets that people want to buy. And so whether it's communication or whether it's technical, you know, or whether it's finance, I think the world that we're all going into, women and men, is an understanding of what skill sets that we can bring, you know, to any occupation. I absolutely agree with the comments that have been made about connecting with people who are interested in the same things that you are. Find your tribe. And I think that that's the power of the internet, which means we can find our tribe and we haven't even met them. And in blockchain, that's been one of the most gratifying things for me, that I just meet people on LinkedIn and we're interested in something and we share, maybe we write something together. And I might have been communicating with them for 2 or 3 years before I ever see them face to face. And so I think you don't need to go out to meet people. If you're getting in groups on LinkedIn and Facebook, and you're going and listening to discussions like this, webinars, panels, conferences, finding the people that are interested in the same things as you. And as Monica said, like, build your courage, go talk to people, because I have never experienced a more helpful, supportive community than the blockchain community, to be really honest with you.
I think that's really true. I mean, I was really drawn to it because things that have been mentioned, very smart people, you know, why are all these super smart people interested in this Bitcoin thing? That was my first kind of question to myself. You know, what is it that's drawing all these people here to this seemingly obscure technology 6 years ago? People that are very socially conscious, often, you know, they want to change the world, they want to deal with environmental impact, or they want to change problems that they see. I mean, that's what entrepreneurship really is. It's problem solving, and they see things that don't work well, they want to use the technology to fix it. And people, because they love it so much, you know, a bit like Tanya was saying, you know, I'm right, like, I know this is going to make a difference. So they really want to help you kind of get it as well. And so it is very supportive. Amber was just telling us off for being too humble in the chat. I just seen her comments there. She says we shouldn't say that we're not technical, and we can understand the technology and know how to apply it without being programmers, which is a valid point. Probably women are too modest sometimes. It can be a way of making sort of empathetic social connections, but it can also sometimes be something that people perceive as a weakness. So perhaps we should be more bold, since we're talking about strong women. So next time we'll all say that we're the world's leading expert in blockchain.
I think you're really right, Amber. The thing is, we have been brought up to be humble, but you know, majority of women sometime in their lives will go through and experience imposter syndrome, and we do need to address that. Time and time again, I know I suffer it. Most people do sometime in their lives. I think women have to stop. Now we've got to help each other. So thanks, Amber, for bringing that up, because we do need to say, actually, you know what, you're right. A man would never say, I'm not very good at this. Actually, you know, we're really good at what we do. Otherwise, we wouldn't be successful.
Absolutely. And I want to bring in Susan's question, because Susan made a point about networks. So she was asking actually a question that kind of relates to what we were talking about, but also to how blockchain networks can operate. So one thing that you can do in a blockchain network using tokens, which is sort of one way of using a kind of cryptocurrency, is to incentivize people for the inputs that they bring in. So if you create a network on a blockchain and you have an attached token to that, you could potentially monetize people's contribution, whether it's, you know, research, or they're contributing to communication. So that, you know, there are whole communities online that are trying to create sort of an alternative blockchain nation of some kind, where, you know, you sort of recreate the structures of traditional society, but using the technology to reward people for how much they put in. So I was wondering what the panel have to say about that. Maybe as a final point, could we create a blockchain network that had these, you know, for women or for people in blockchain in general, that had these kind of incentives to really reward people for their contribution?
I think the blockchain and crypto that is most similar to rewards-based tokens is Steemit. Have you heard of the Steemit platform, where you write articles and they reward you in tokens with the number of reads members that have read your articles, etc. And you can trade that, or you can save it up and redeem it for whatever the going rate is at that time. So there are blockchain communities built for that, and Steemit is a well-known and reputable company. So yes, if Susan was thinking of building her own, I'm sure.
Aren't you Susan Fowler? She is doing that, isn't she?
I think that's what she is doing.
Really?
Susan, do you want to speak?
Absolutely.
Dubix. Yeah, Dubix.
Absolutely brilliant. Yeah. I think it's a great concept.
Hi, I didn't want to, obviously, I know I'm not a speaker today, so I actually enjoyed listening to all of your perspectives. And I obviously want to definitely congratulate every single one of you for your amazing efforts in blockchain. First of all, going alongside Amber in terms of empowering women and making sure that you guys are confident when you're talking and, suggesting certain ways of delivering blockchain. So in terms of Jubix itself, obviously I do believe that values within networks is really important going forward. So regardless if it's from an age perspective, from a diverse perspective, from a shared value perspective, it has to have a positive impact within the network. So to incentivize people to stay in the network, I think potentially it needs to be a fiscal incentive. So I know you talked about tokens. Is there any way that tokens can relate to actually liquidity?
Absolutely. I mean, the whole idea is it's what you use that token for, whether it goes on an exchange or whether you trade it. You can trade those tokens to Amazon vouchers, or I don't know, pay a rent or whatever. It's down to you, surely, how you want to develop that.
Yeah, and I think it's really interesting in terms of creative industries as well. Going back to my point about the media, I've heard people speaking about, let's say, the music industry. Most of what the music industry does now is it makes money through live events. So obviously at the moment that's very tricky with COVID, but you can have an online virtual concert, with your favorite band or your favorite artist. You can now take part in that online virtual concert, and maybe if it's a tokenized system, your tokens being part of that band's community unlocks special privileges. You have, I don't know, one-on-one with a band member. You have, all sorts of possibilities of, or they can sing you a song. A lot of these platforms like TikTok and other things, people have made money through, fans copying the music of their favorite band and sort of adding their own content to it and being rewarded for that. So, the way we develop content and the way we monetize it is rapidly evolving. And this is, I think, a big phenomenon in, K-pop. That fans kind of create fan-based content and all sorts of other areas, Harry Potter fans, fan fiction, all these kind of things. So I think we're going to sort of turn the power a little bit more back to the user in this, and that if you do have a talent or a particular passion, you can really dive into that more in the online world, and you can even get an income stream coming from it. As an artist or as a musician or as a fashion designer, you're designing digital dresses for people to wear in online games or online fashion shows, all kinds of things that are bringing these different technologies together. So it's a really fascinating area, which we probably should delve into in a future event because we're running out of time. But I would love to see some of these things evolving and see how they do evolve. I know a few people who are building those kind of music-based platforms with micropayments for streaming music, for example. Tune FM are doing that. I've been working with them a bit.
I think definitely the creative industry and stuff, because Amber's doing something interesting as well, aren't you, Amber, with ArtSec and stuff? I think there is huge opportunities in the arts and creative industry, and it's about time because we need to start supporting them. Definitely.
Well, we're running out of time, unfortunately. We could go on for hours. You see, strong women, we have so much to talk about. Once you get going, you can't stop us.
Absolutely. So women like to matter.
I would just like to close it by saying thank you, first of all, to all of the speakers, Siddhi, Monica and Tanya. Thank you to Jane for spearheading this all in the first place. Here's to that, and keep well, everybody, and keep on blockchaining. Thank you.